Hi everyone, my name is Selena and thanks for coming back to another video. I'm going to try to go through this very quickly. I tried to record this a little bit earlier and it turned out to be like 20 minutes, 23 minutes long. Good Lord. We are not going to do that. So I have information to share about what I've been reading, especially during the stay-at-home order, and I'm going to try to go through it quickly without cutting anything out, but we'll see. And if I look down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. But I'm going to be talking about how what I read over the stay-at-home order connected to self-care, if that makes sense. So I'm defining self-care as focusing on the things that we can do to help preserve ourselves. This is different from self-help, which is about improving oneself, but self-care is about preserving yourself so that you can continue to do the work, continue to do the resisting, right? And so as a black woman in America, the act of resistance is constantly, and so the need for self-care is an ongoing concern. And this concept that I'm thinking about of self-care through is it started by Audre Lorde, and so I'm using her definition, her terminology, to understand what self-care is. And during the time of the stay-at-home order from March to May, I read lots of books, lots of different genres, but I did find a particular trend, and I read probably about 9 different romance novels, and 5 of them were written by black women and featured black female protagonists. And for me, that was amazing. It's what I needed. I didn't even know I needed it until looking back on it. I was like, wow, that did wonders. It did so much healing work for me. It was my form of self-care during that time period. I am going to go through the 5 that I read that were written by black women that had black female protagonists, and then kind of talk in between about what was healed for me during this time period as I read these books. So the first book that I read was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. And Chloe is a 30-something woman living in England, but she suffers from fibromyalgia, which for her shows up as fatigue, body pain, insomnia, and like some mood swings. But what's interesting is that she's suffering from something that is internal. It doesn't show itself externally in her experience, and so she's constantly having to defend herself, defend her right to voice her pain and to say the things that she needs. The male lead is Red. His full name is Redford, but everyone calls him Red, and he does have red hair. He works in the building that she lives in, and he is also suffering from internal pain. He's recovering from an emotionally abusive relationship. And so each of them have these internal hurts that they're struggling to overcome and to heal from, so that they can move forward and build relationships with each other. And I thought this was such a great story. I read this twice, actually. I read it, the second time I read it was during a stay-at-home order. I read it first, just shortly before COVID-19 hit and everyone had to start working from home. But yeah, I was able to fall into this story more easily. One, because it was a black female lead, and so there wasn't the extra work that needs to get done to be fully empathic with the character, which is one of the goals of reading anyway, which is to go into another world, to experience another story, to experience a different life than what you currently are. That kind of empathic experience is made a little bit more challenging when the character doesn't necessarily look like you. It takes more leaps to get there, but I was so happy to have a character who I didn't have to take all those extra leaps with to be fully immersed in the story and with her, but also hearing how she talked and shared her instances of pain was amazing, because as a black woman I've experienced many forms of racial aggression. The term microaggression has been bandied about a lot, but I don't really like to call it microaggressions because to me they're impactful, and each one hurts and does harm. And it's the work that I have to do, the self-care to heal from those microaggressions. The one that stood out to me the most during this time while I was reading was when I was in college. I started to take up ballroom dancing and I loved it. And I was a huge Jane Austen fan. I started reading it in high school, but I continued reading Jane Austen in college, and taking Jane Austen themed classes, right? So one gentleman who lived on the same floor with me was wondering about my interest in dancing and Jane Austen, and what he said was he didn't understand why I enjoyed it because it's not true to who I am. Like having the dream or the desire to waltz across a dance floor or to do a rumba or a cha-cha-cha didn't fit in his categories. Me being able to do those things didn't fit in his categories. Me sitting on, a lounge chair or out on the quad reading a Jane Austen novel and enjoying it, enjoying the romance as well as the satire and the experience of traveling to the place, different places of England that the stories take place in, didn't fit into his categories. He didn't see me inhabiting those spaces. And that small, short, quick conversation is one that stayed with me because it started me questioning who I am and how I operate in the world. I mean, I'm clearly a blurred, like Doctor Who, hello. But it's not always been an easy thing for people to see and to accept. And so seeing Chloe be able to say, that hurts, or no, I'm not okay. Learning, when I saw her learning how to do that and to voice that with Red, was giving me the permission to do the same as well. And to stay on the same theme of voicing concern, that ties into ideas of vulnerability, which the second book I read, The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory, the female lead protagonist is Maddie, and she's a stylist, she's an entrepreneur, and she dreams of styling the rich and powerful. And she meets, doesn't necessarily meet because they've met before. They didn't really have a really friendly relationship, but they had a one night stand. She has a one night stand with a gentleman named Theo who works for a politician, and he at the time was working on an initiative to establish statewide pre-K for everyone. But what they have to work through with each other, and these are two black people, are working through ideas of vulnerability. What and when to say what they need to say. How to be vulnerable and when to be vulnerable with each other was kind of the theme of what they needed to get through to build a quality relationship. And interesting enough, that book led me straight to Brene Brown and the Power of Vulnerability, and then I also read Rising Strong. But the Power of Vulnerability was probably the one that was most impactful for me during this time period. But yeah, being able to one, say what you want, say what is really on your mind, what your body needs, right? Which is, at least for me, an important part of self-care. But also, Brene Brown has this idea of foreboding joy, right? Not trying to dim the brightness of any good thing that happens by reveling in the happiness that you happen to experience. She says, embody that space. Don't dim the light. Don't be in a happy situation, but then be thinking about, well, it could go bad in this way. So those two ideas were important that I got out of Brene Brown's books, but I clearly saw those things being exhibited in Maddie and Theo's relationship, which, again, it's part of why it's important to have so many, to have a diverse representation of characters in stories, because I was able to see her work through these issues and see them work together to be vulnerable people with each other to build a relationship. And I know that these are fictional stories, but I was able to say to myself, well, if Maddie can do it, maybe I can do it too, right? Having the image of the success with in the image be someone that looks similar to you is very important. The next book that I read, also by Jasmine Guillory, was called The Royal Holiday. It takes place in England. Maddie's mom, whose name is Vivian, she's a 54-year-old social worker. She's dealing with her work, and so she is up for promotion, and she's really good at her job, but she doesn't know if she should take the promotion, which would remove some of the aspects of her job that she's really passionate about. The ways in which that she interacts with the people in her community and is able to help might not be available to her if she gets this promotion, or but if she takes this promotion. But she is on holiday. She's there for the Christmas holiday with her daughter, who is styling someone from the royal family, and she meets Malcolm, who works for the royal family. He does I think he does the books and things like that, money stuff. I'm not quite clear about what his role was. I don't think it matters that much, but he is obviously very successful in what he does, and he was a successful businessman before coming back to work for the royal family, which he did as kind of a favor. And so they're both looking at what their jobs are and how their jobs can best express their passions, especially at that point in life, because they're both older people and they don't feel the need to climb the ladder. They don't feel the need to I guess make a name for themselves in that way. It's more about how do I most feel fulfilled, and finding the career and the jobs that can help them feel that fulfillment, which I thought was an amazing underlining theme to have in a romance novel. The last two books that I read were by Alyssa Cole, A Princess in Theory and A Duke by Default. A Princess in Theory follows two characters. I believe the first character's name is Nadie. She is black female who is studying to become an epidemiologist, which was very prescient for the time. I didn't even know that going in. I just saw that it was available, downloaded it, and started to read it. But yeah, she was studying to become an epidemiologist, and she meets a man who she doesn't recognize at first because she hadn't seen him since she was a child. But his name is Thabiso, and he is the prince of a fake African country, which is the one criticism I would have of this book, because the main action of the book takes place, or the initial action of the book, I should say, takes place in New York, a real place, but they couldn't place the action and activities that happen in Africa in an actual place. They made up, Alyssa Cole made up a country. But regardless of that fact, it was an interesting story to see how these two individuals navigated their spheres of power, right? She being an academic, he being a prince, and setting boundaries. She was a great example of boundary setting, saying these are my principles, and whatever happens, I'm not going to push them aside just to be with a prince. And the last book that I read was A Duke by Default, again by Alyssa Cole. The main female character's name was Portia, and she is a New York socialite, which she was using drinking to kind of make being a socialite and socializing people a little bit more easy for her. But at the start of the story, she's trying to put that past behind her, and she wants to be taken more seriously. And so what she does is she takes her skills with marketing, particularly social media marketing, to try to bring this swordsmith shop into the modern age. So she goes to Scotland and she tries to help this man modernize his endeavor, modernize his business. And his name is Tavish. He's described as a silver fox, and he is the owner of the blacksmith shop where these swords are made. He also has some issues with his past that he is struggling with, particularly the past with his father. And they both have to learn how to deal with these various issues that come about with being not quite fitting in the skin you're in kind of situations, in order to move forward with each other. So I'm just going to wrap up by saying that these books were impactful in ways in which I didn't think of before. I never gave romance novels a try until this recent moment, but I'm so glad that I did. It has allowed me to see myself in different ways, and case in point would be the fact that I've ordered Savage X Fenty. If you've gotten this far in the video, you deserve to know that fact, that I have ordered Savage X Fenty items and I'm enjoying them, right? I was like, I think I can be like these characters. I could be like Vivian and enjoy some nice underwear or some nice lingerie. I also ordered some loungewear because I was working from home and I needed loungewear too. But yeah, I would have never said I would do that. I would never have thought that I would order nice lingerie, nice underwear, right? Not that I never thought I didn't deserve it, but I didn't think it was for me. But after reading these books, I decided they were for me, and I placed the order. I got my items, and I'm very glad that I did. So this was my form of self-care. This is not everyone's self-care, but I thought I'd share this and put this out there for anyone who may have had or may have gone through a similar experience. And if you are looking for ways in which to self-care, give romance novels a try. I don't know. You might just surprise yourself. I know I did. I surprised myself after reading these romance novels. All right, I think I've talked long enough. I'm going to stop here. If you have any comments or if you read any of the books that I mentioned, let's talk down below. Okay, bye.